All right, welcome to your latest edition of Bitcoin Brief. On Tuesday, June 30th, we have Tone Vays, who is our Bitcoin educator and trader on deck, Jimmy Song, Bitcoin programmer, all things tech, and Giacomo Zucco, who is our Bitcoin educator and consultant from B Academy, to talk about the latest headlines in Bitcoin. Tone, how's it going?
Good, good. Got back from PorcFest. That was a lot of fun. Back to quarantining, hung out with way more people than I probably should have. And therefore, now it's literally time not to see anyone for a couple of weeks, making sure that, like, I have no idea if I've had the virus, if I caught the virus. I don't know. So play it safe for about a week or 10 days, a couple of 2 weeks at most. Kind of sucks for 4th of July holiday, but it's okay.
All right. Jimmy, how's it going down there?
Well, unlike Tone, like Tone, I've been gone for a couple of weeks, traveling and hitting some national parks and so on. But unlike Tone, I'm not going to quarantine myself for the next 2 weeks. I don't care. I think it's all a scam, and I think this whole resurgence of cases and things like that is just the government's way of justifying whatever that they've done already to the economy, which is quite a lot, and they've screwed over a bunch of people. So, they're trying to justify it, and that's what I think is happening.
We are seeing a rise in coronavirus cases across the United States, but in Giacomo's world, it's actually declining. They're starting to open up the borders to other countries. How's it going, Giacomo?
Yeah, they started actually at the end of May, but the point is that cases are a completely arbitrary measure because the more tests you do, the more cases you have. Even assuming that the reverse polymerase chain test is really accurate, is not, but cases is just something that you do more, you find more. The point is total gross mortality, which in Europe is really is less than 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Is a little bit more than last year, like a bad flu year. So like Jimmy, I think that this is not properly a scam, but this is probably something seriously overblown. But unlike Jimmy, I have seen nobody. So, so like him, I'm not in quarantine, but unlike him, I have no reason to be, because I'm not seeing anybody recently. There are no conferences in Europe for the time being. I hope I will make it to Texas maybe this August, but I'm not sure yet. I have a lot of American Airlines mile to recover from the cancellations.
All right, well, I'm Christine Lee, your New York-based journalist, and I have been trying to adhere to social distancing measures just out of an abundance of caution. And well, I would just listen to Dr. Anthony Fauci's testimony for Congress today. He's really concerned that eventually we'll see 100,000 new cases in the United States each day. So that's going to be, and we have a possible pandemic upon a pandemic with a new strain of swine flu coming out of China. Who knows what the future will bring? It's a crazy year. But in Bitcoin news, we were also having a couple headlines. I'm going to share my screen with you to show. All right. So first up to bat, Chinese Ponzi scheme moves 185 million worth of Ethereum. A wallet containing Plus token funds has transferred some 188 million in Ethereum, and the price of Ethereum is now down 4% on the day. So in brief, funds tied to alleged crypto Ponzi scheme Plus token are on the move again. The ETH that moved today had not been touched since December of 2019 and represents roughly a fifth of the total value collected by Plus token. Ethereum is down 4% in price following the move. This article is from June 24th. You know, Giacomo, I haven't heard from you in a while, so I'd love for you to open up the discussion and give me your thoughts on this.
Well, this is difficult to comment by me because as somebody who already see Ethereum as basically a Ponzi scheme, this just sounds like a meta Ponzi scheme that is getting back to the original one. So it's not so different from the origin. The interesting point is again about privacy. Ethereum is way worse than Bitcoin about privacy, but Bitcoin is not great as well. Indeed, in another news that we will discuss later, we will try to make hypotheses about the large Bitcoin movement. So the fact that we can see this kind of stuff moving and we can comment on it is not great yet. Bitcoin will eventually improve it. In Ethereum is truly terrible because it's account based. So basically you don't have any kind of UTXO fungibility. And I mean, you can have some, but is structurally more difficult. As for the honesty on Plus token,
We lose Giacomo, or did I lose connection?
I think we lost Giacomo there.
Yeah.
All right.
I see the rest of
we'll
you
wait
moving.
For...
All right.
We lost his audio. So, okay, while Giacomo gets back online, Tone, what are your thoughts on these coins on the move?
Right. So yeah, so we're going to be covering like both stories. So you can pull up the other article as well. They both kind of go together in that there's a large Bitcoin transaction on the move, as Giacomo mentioned. And yeah, this has to do somewhat with the fact that neither of these are inherently private. So you know that it's moving, but once again, even though you know that it's moving, you don't know who is actually moving it. So it's debatable whether it's good or bad to know that these coins are on the move. Of course, those people that are moving them could be doxxed. This is a pretty large account. It's almost $1 billion. It will be $1 billion sooner or later, probably sooner than later, as the price of Bitcoin rises. And to me, it's a good thing. It means that Bitcoin isn't lost. It means that there will be plenty of Bitcoin in circulation, and people are actually using it. And those that have that clearly haven't lost the keys. I don't have any problem with this. I know a lot of people panic. To me, these are, I mean, interesting statistics. But let's just say if I ran, I mean, we are covering it, but we're only covering it because it's in the news and everyone wants to know. But personally, I don't consider this that major of news. People moving their money, good for them.
I'll just point out the second article. The most secretive Bitcoin wallet just moved nearly 1 billion. The biggest mystery Bitcoin wallet has just been emptied. But where has the money gone? So in brief, the largest unknown Bitcoin wallet just moved its funds to another 2 wallets. It was the largest non-exchange Bitcoin address. The huge transaction cost just about 48 cents in fees. Jimmy, what's your take on all this crypto being moved?
Yeah, it's interesting because as far as I know, the Plus token funds for that were in Bitcoin have more or less been sold, I think. A lot of it, this was the speculation behind why it won't break certain price levels, is because Plus token, whenever it gets to a certain price level, it will sell. So 10,000, for example, seems to be a popular number at which you see a lot of sell pressure coming from these guys. What's interesting to me about the Ethereum aspect is that it is very hard to get rid of a large amount of Ethereum. And this is largely because Ethereum's like completely not anonymous. People have been watching this wallet for a long time, and it's very easy to keep track of where Ethereum funds go. They design Ethereum to be accounts-based. So generally, you don't have more than a few quote unquote addresses on Ethereum, whereas on Bitcoin, you use a new address for each thing. There are all sorts of anonymizing tools. There's coin joins, things like that, to make it much more private than Ethereum is. And what the Ethereum what that means is that Plus token is probably having a hard time selling or liquidating its Ethereum holdings. And that's why it's just sort of been sitting around. Maybe they found a solution, or maybe they found somebody that will convert these for them. But I can't imagine that this would be easy. One of the events from the past that this reminded me of is the shapeshift hack that happened a long time ago. But basically, they had a bunch of their Ethereum stolen by somebody, and they were able to keep track of it on the Ethereum blockchain because, again, it's not very anonymous. And as a result, whenever it would hit an exchange, they would call up the exchange and say, hey, can you freeze this money? It's ours. And they were able to do that with a few of the small deposits. So eventually, they ended up making a deal with the hacker themselves and paid something like 30 cents on the dollar in order to get the Ethereum back. But that's what centralization does. And this is what you can expect with Ethereum. Now, in this particular case, it might sound just because this is Plus Token and they've scammed a bunch of people, you know, and all those people want their money back. But in another sense, this is bad because all those people that got hacked or that were scammed by Plus Token, they're not learning any lesson if they get reparations for this. They're just going to go into the next scam just as easily and say, okay, well, you know, I got made whole by the Ethereum network as a result. So that's what I suspect it will happen if this stays long enough. And there's enough governmental pressure, I expect Ethereum to have to give the money back to all the people that participated in the Plus Token scam. With Bitcoin, though, it's a little different, right? The Bitcoin story is interesting because it seems like this person is basically spending it kind of slowly. So if you look at the actual transaction, it's 5,000 Bitcoin to one address and
now Jimmy's turn.
Now Jimmy's frozen.
So Ethereum censorship is hitting us
94,000 to another. So it
oh,
looks
wait, there
like
he is.
you know they're. Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah,
okay,
we lost you there.
The thing with the so the thing with the Bitcoin is that what's going to happen is you know they took out 5,000 and they still have 94,000 in one address. So 5,000 Bitcoin is a lot of money. That's I think around $45 million or something like that. That's probably to live on while they do something with it. Am I frozen again?
No, you're good.
Frozen.
You're good now.
Okay, all right. You guys look completely stiff. So that's probably what's happening here. This person's probably going to stay more or less anonymous unless the exchange happens to dox them. There's no central committee of Bitcoin saying this person has too much money, therefore we must tax them and take all their money because they didn't earn it. You know, that's the beauty of it. And you know, Bitcoin is beautiful for that reason. Ethereum sucks for the other reason.
Good analysis. Giacomo, before we lost you, you were in the midst of your thoughts there on the Plus Token move, as well as we pointed out this Bitcoin wallet that just moved nearly 1 billion. If you want to finish your thoughts.
No, right. Just the fact that I'm basically redundant with what Jimmy is saying. Was just adding the fact that one very negative news about what we are discussing is the fact that we can discuss it, and that's a negative news for Ethereum and Bitcoin as well. Even if with Ethereum the account-based model, unlike the UTXO-based model, makes even easier to track everything, so it's even worse. But this is itself, for the fact that we can still discuss a lot on-chain movement, is something that we will eventually mitigate, if not fix entirely.
All right. I'm going to move on to the next story. This coming from PayPal. So PayPal and Venmo to roll out crypto buying and selling, according to sources. The fintech giant PayPal plans to roll out direct sales of cryptocurrency to its 325 million users, according to 3 people familiar with the matter. And we did have Mr. Tone Vays talk about this in this Cointelegraph article in a debate-style forum. And we had Tone against the move. I'll just briefly talk about the for move from Ian DiMartino, at least, just for good measure. he felt that this was a good move for mass adoption, basically. Tone, you disagree.
Yeah, so this was an article that we wrote. He published it under his profile on Cointelegraph. This is going back to 2014, guys. This is over 6 years ago when rumors of PayPal integrating Bitcoin came out. Now, at the time, these rumors were circulating that PayPal or Braintree, which is one of PayPal's subsidiaries, would be accepting Bitcoin for merchant transactions, but then the merchant would simply receive the fiat money. So this is similar to the current day Bitcoin debit cards. This is just long before there were Bitcoin debit cards. But this would open up and Bitcoin spending, basically Roger Ver's dream of every single business accepting the token, accepting Bitcoin. But at the same time, none of these businesses were actually going to take the Bitcoin. The middleman company, being PayPal, would simply sell it on the open market. And I felt that this would be completely devastating for Bitcoin. It would open up lots of limit order sells on exchanges without any organic demand for Bitcoin, basically bypassing the store of value property of Bitcoin and going straight to the spending, which again is the model of Bcash. And I was just recently informed that Bcash hit an all-time low against the price of Bitcoin like last week. So as it fell below 1.5% of Bitcoin. And the current news is a little bit different, but PayPal is once again in the news, is that PayPal might basically replace Coinbase, well, not replace Coinbase, but offer a service similar to Coinbase, allowing you to buy and sell, I guess, your Bitcoin, which doesn't really make sense to me. It doesn't seem like the right business model for PayPal. Also, like, we're not sure how true this is. The CoinDesk says that it's a trusted source inside, but I think we're going back to this model. I think if anything, this is what they mean, that anyone like, well, right now, when you buy something from my website, you have the option to pay in Bitcoin or you have the option to pay with a credit card, but the credit card payment goes through PayPal. I have PayPal integrated. So I can see the PayPal API integrating a Bitcoin payment. And then you pay with Bitcoin, and PayPal sells that Bitcoin. They have a deal with Coinbase or Gemini or whoever. They sell that Bitcoin and they give the merchant the fiat. So they become a middleman, taking a percentage on that Bitcoin sale. And there you go. Like a credit card takes a percentage of that for themselves. So the fee would probably go to the merchant, not to the consumer. So the merchant would pay like a 1% fee on the user selling the Bitcoin on the open market through PayPal. That seems like a much more common sense model that PayPal may be looking at.
Okay, interesting. I'll go through a bit of the article. I want to point out that with PayPal getting onto the crypto bandwagon, they have a long-standing relationship with Coinbase, going back as early as 2016. 2018, Coinbase made instant fiat withdrawals to PayPal via available for US customers. Last year, European Coinbase users could withdraw to their PayPal accounts, followed by users in Canada. So it seems that PayPal has been invested, or at least partially or indirectly involved with crypto for a while. We have heard from CEO Jack Dorsey rolled out Bitcoin purchases on its Cash app in mid-2018. And they're also doing a hiring push. So in a time when a lot of people are losing jobs, around the start of 2020, PayPal posted job openings to ramp up its new blockchain research group. PayPal posted 8 engineering positions, 4 in San Jose, 4 in Singapore. Of course, PayPal saying that they are unable to comment on any of their specific plans. Jimmy, what's your thought on PayPal trying to open up and give access to crypto to more people?
Well, I wrote this in my newsletter, but basically you have Cash App, which is very similar to Venmo, making a ton of money because they're able to sell Bitcoin to all those people that have Cash App. And they made a significant amount of money. They're constantly buying crypto, buying Bitcoin in order to sell to these people. So it's not a surprise that Venmo, which is the main competitor to Cash App, is doing the same thing. As far as I know, Venmo doesn't really have a business model. They're allowing transfers of money between people. They don't charge any fees. So this is their path to profitability. This is the way that they're going to capitalize all of these users that they've acquired on the Venmo platform, is by allowing them to buy crypto. The thing that's concerning for me from what I've read about PayPal is that this is expected to be something like a custodial service. So you're not going to be able to withdraw your Bitcoins even after you buy it on Venmo. And that, they just sort of keep it on their books. So it'll be kind of worse than fractional reserve banking in the sense that you're not able to transfer this Bitcoin anywhere, but if you want exposure to the asset, then you can go get it. That's what I'm expecting from PayPal. It's interesting because the two main founders of PayPal that everyone knows are Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, and they're both kind of bullish on Bitcoin. If you've been following either of them, you know that Thiel has said at one point that Bitcoin was what we wanted PayPal to be, but we couldn't do it because of all of the regulations. I imagine that's what's prevented them from getting into Bitcoin earlier on. But yeah, for me, this is just a way for them to become profitable. They're not making money off of all of these users that they have on Venmo, and this is a way in which they could monetize all of those people.
Well, it's also a way for them to become relevant. I mean, they're PayPal, Venmo, they're huge payments platforms. They must be on top of their industry. They must be understanding, at least trying to understand what's going on in the crypto sphere and trying to adapt it to their business models. Giacomo, what are your thoughts on this move?
Yeah, I agree with Jimmy to the fact that for now, if it's just a virtual exposition to the price of Bitcoin and not actually something that you can take out under your responsibility, it's just half baked. But the good news about this, I think, is just in the same days there is Revolut announcing that they're probably moving from that exact model to a model in which people can withdraw. So it's not like 100% official yet, but there is this discussion that they may let users take Bitcoin out starting from the next month or something like that. So if this is true, that means that maybe Venmo is just going through the first, let's say, Revolut-like phase before entering a proper Cash App-like phase, which is, I think, it's mostly scary for regulatory reasons for them because, well, of course, it also increases the security challenges because now you have to let people withdraw stuff, and so you have to be really, really concerned with security. While when everything is virtual, you're just making up numbers on a database. So in a way, I understand why they take it slow. It's true that PayPal was actually born from by people whose vision was very, very close to creating something like Bitcoin. They wanted the original vision for PayPal, just like Musk and Thiel have explained, was like an internet of money in which you just need an email address as account. You don't need documents or state identity. There is no borders, no exchange rate around the world. The idea was when you are in the physical place, you are using government money. But when you are on the internet, you are a citizen on the internet, so you use x.com, which was back then the name. But recently, what is fun is that recently the new governance of Bitcoin, Musk and Thiel are not involved anymore. And the current governance was actually very harsh about Bitcoin. I remember some comments from the PayPal. It was possibly the CTO. It was like, Bitcoin is the evilest thing around. Bitcoin is a terrible thing or something like that. So it's funny because you see this kind of changes in heart where there is the momentum growing a little bit. Let's not have too much expectation from this. I remember that PayPal integrating Bitcoin was a typical not unnews from 2014, where you remember that every time in 2014 PayPal was integrating Bitcoin. So let's wait. One particular funny thing is that people started to react in a polarized Bitcoiners started to react in a polarized way. Somebody was like, okay, this is good for Bitcoin. And somebody was like, no, PayPal is evil because it's KYC, it's anti-Bitcoin, etc. But the same people that I was joking and I was mocking the second group, because the same people that were actually concerned about PayPal adopting Bitcoin somehow, they were happy about the Venezuelan government accepting Bitcoin for passport payments. So it's kind of funny. I mean, the point is that we are happy even if very, very bad people start using Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is the neutral money for the enemies. So I certainly don't like the Venezuelan government, and I, to a lesser degree, I may dislike PayPal. But this is actually a good news if we have more choice. I hope that it will move closer to Cash App, both in allowing people to withdrawing and in staying Bitcoin only instead of, I mean, it's 2020. I don't think that the crypto narrative is so strong as it was in 2017. So they may probably follow Cash App in something more focused, more serious with Bitcoin only. I hope that they just keep that way.
Yeah, I'll also note some comments in there. The industry source said that they expected PayPal would be working with multiple exchanges to source liquidity. Also, my understanding is that they're going to allow buys and sells of crypto directly from PayPal and Venmo, according to a source, that industry source to CoinDesk. They are going to have some sort of built-in wallet functionality, so you can store it there. I don't know, Jimmy, like what do you think is the best way to route this technically so that people have access to their crypto? And
Well, I think it's Tone's turn, but
No, it's fine. Go for it.
yeah, I think like they should just operate with the blockchain. So I mean, you can store it there, but I don't know if they're going to let you withdraw from there. Maybe only send to other PayPal people. I don't know. I like PayPal has, you know, like I think we owe a lot of the good things on the internet to PayPal. For example, eBay wouldn't have become eBay without PayPal, right? Like the fact that people are able to pay one another using something like that allowed a marketplace like eBay to come. So they're trying to take some of that playbook and apply it to Venmo. And make it more a peer-to-peer thing. I don't know. Eventually I'm hoping that what ends up happening is that they end up not settling everything in the US dollar, but in Bitcoin. And then it becomes kind of like a centralized second layer, which would be pretty good, honestly. Like if you're able to pay each other using your PayPal account in Bitcoin, and settle in Bitcoin and never have to touch the dollar, then that's not a bad thing. And you know, not have to pay any on-chain transaction fees or whatever, and this becomes like sort of the wallet that you use to buy coffee or whatever. It's not a bad thing. I'm hoping Cash App does something similar. Maybe they can have like a lightning channel between them so they can settle instantly. But yeah, so something like that would be great.
Tone, did you want to add something further?
No, not really. It's never a good thing as all these companies are coming into Bitcoin without giving the user custody. That's the whole point of Bitcoin, and Jimmy touched on this point twice already. In that, I always discourage people from using Coinbase, and I try to educate people how to hold on to their own keys because it's so important. And people don't realize how important it is until the government comes for their money, until their money gets frozen, until they get accused of something and they can't pay for a lawyer because their money is frozen. So eventually more and more people will understand, and they will only go with middleman companies that allow them to take possession of that Bitcoin. And eventually it will become very, very important. But in the short term, this will certainly help price of Bitcoin and adoption. But in the long term, it's concerning because the more Bitcoin is under the control of regulated entities, the closer we are to the 1930s of the confiscation of gold. If all the people held the gold on their own, it would have been very difficult to confiscate the gold. But because 90% of the gold is held by a few institutions, it was very easy to confiscate the gold, and Bitcoin could fall into the same trap. If 20 years from now, the majority of the Bitcoin is being held on behalf of the people by government institutions, it's not going to be very difficult to confiscate the majority of the Bitcoin, and that won't be good.
All right. We'll move on to the next story, which is on Bolton's book. So National Security Advisor, former National Security Advisor, I should say, John Bolton, with his tell-all in his time, the White House, he spent about 17 months by President Donald Trump's side. And in this book, we hear that President Trump did mention Bitcoin in the sense that President Trump wanted to go after Bitcoin as early as 2018. I had the chance to read the book. It mentions Bitcoin in the sense that U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin was taking a bigger role in trade and was receiving some criticism from Trump that he should go after Bitcoin for fraud instead. So let's take a look at this article. In July 2019, US President Donald Trump came out harshly against Bitcoin, broadcasting skepticism about it and other cryptocurrencies to his dozens of millions of Twitter followers. Yet we know about this book, The Room Where It Happened, claims that this was not the president's first encounter with Bitcoin. The book, whose launch has since been, we know that's been delayed, it's out now. The Washington Examiner, which originally obtained this excerpt from the book, wrote that Bolton dated the quote in a conversation in May 2018, a year prior to President Trump's Bitcoin tweets and when the cryptocurrency bubble was still unraveling. Bolton wrote that the comment was made in the context of the conversation with Secretary Mnuchin on trade sanctions and tariffs against China. While President Trump apparently made his comment in 2018, only recently was Washington begun to take steps to regulate this industry. And starting in 2019, Secretary Mnuchin made multiple mainstream appearances towing Trump's sentiment about cryptocurrencies. Days after Trump's Bitcoin tweet, according to the Treasury Secretary, we're looking at all the crypto assets. We're going to make sure we have a unified approach. And my guess is that there are going to be more regulations that come out from all these agencies. So it appears that we are getting a lot of blowback, or at least from the Trump administration, a lot of FUD on the utility of crypto, particularly Bitcoin. Giacomo, I'll hit you up first. What were your thoughts when you first heard about Trump's sentiments on Bitcoin in this book?
Yeah, my thought was the same of the thought I had when I actually witnessed to Trump tweeting directly against Bitcoin a few months ago. I think it's absolutely natural because I consider Trump a socialist, a Keynesian. So he's all about control. There may be some free market rhetoric in the Republican Party, but it's mostly rhetoric, and as it often is in the right-wing game of politics. So he's a socialist, he's a Keynesian. He criticized the central bank, the Federal Reserve, a lot of times, but every time he criticized the Fed because the Fed was not inflating enough and not being enough interventionist, not being enough expensive. So his criticism to the Fed is not like and the Fed Ron Paul style. It is like you should do more, you should distort the economy more. So it's completely natural that he's against Bitcoin, even if you consider the strict protectionist policies about immigration, about trade wars, about controlling commerce with other nations, for example, China. Well, Bitcoin is a tool that can allow people to move capitals and resources and things and people even in some way, or people with capital. So it's natural that both the left and the right wing are basically up to a certain level anti-Bitcoin. It's funny because sometimes on Twitter I discuss with Bitcoiners that think that Trump is some kind of closet Bitcoiner Austrian gold bag that is actually putting up an act against Bitcoin, but because he is actually going to end the Fed and bring back a free banking. I think that's delusional, but I mean, everybody has some dreams, so I'm not going to disturb people.
Okay. Well, I'll note that the secretary added that while the government wants to make sure that technology moves forward, digital assets should not be used like the modern equivalent of old Swiss secret number bank accounts. So it does seem that they want they want control, but they don't want people to have access to Bitcoin in a way that could circumvent central banks. At least that's the sense I'm getting from this. What are your thoughts, Tone?
Yeah, so I'm not surprised. It's almost impossible to find anyone that wants to rule over other people while at the same time trying to give them freedom, especially freedom of money. So while I certainly prefer Trump in that position than almost anybody else currently in Congress, at the same time, I never expected him, like Giacomo said, I never for a second thought that he would end the Fed or not hate Bitcoin. So he's a little more pro-business than anyone else that could have been president. But at the same time, I mean, they don't want that. I think that's a line from Obama. The Swiss number bank account in your pocket. And of course, they don't want that. They want to track every single transaction. Now, it's kind of good because I think Trump is let's say if there were other people in that position, they would go after Bitcoin more so. If there was a Democrat in office, I think they would absolutely try to go after Bitcoin. But at the same time, the statement itself, if it's quoted to the letter, is inaccurate because Trump can't go after Bitcoin for fraud. And because Trump doesn't know, Bitcoin's been around 10 years. And I don't expect Trump to sit there and Google Bitcoin, but it's very clear that he doesn't have the right advisors to explain to him what Bitcoin is. Though at the same time, CZ said something similarly stupid once. So I guess you can be in the Bitcoin space as well for 10 years or close to it and still not understand Bitcoin's capabilities. It is, however, confusing when he says Bitcoin and other crypto. You can go after other crypto and you can shut them all down. And this is the big confusion that bothers me to no end, is that, yes, you can shut down Ripple tomorrow. It's very, very easy. It takes one phone call. Ethereum will be a little bit harder. Monero will be a little bit harder. Litecoin, if anyone still cares, will be a little bit harder. But everything else, it's like one phone call shuts it all down. But the confusion that this could happen with Bitcoin, he just needs better advisors.
Jimmy, what do you think the president meant when he told Mnuchin to go after Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, this doesn't necessarily seem like it's about Bitcoin per se. It's the perception that Bitcoin is used for a lot of illegal activity, and that's what he seems to be going after. And you know, I mean, from a political standpoint, and all of these guys are political guys, so their whole worldview is based on political wins versus losses. If they go after quote unquote Bitcoin and come up with a conviction or two, say something like a Silk Road bust or something like that, that's a major win for them. They can always say on the campaign trail, you know, I prevented all of these people from getting drugs or something like that. So I think that's what they were going after. Like going, you know, being tough in a trade war or something like that, that's a tougher sell to the public. That's not going to get people excited and say, okay, well, now we have to vote for Trump because he got us this trade deal or something like that. So to me, this is just what politicians do, is they're looking for cheap, easy wins. And you know, like they disagreed about whether or not Bitcoin would be a cheap, easy win. Now, do they recognize Bitcoin as an existential threat to their own well-being? Not really, and I don't think they have that much incentive to, because they're in office for like 4 years or 8 years. That's it. That's it's not a very long time. Bitcoin is a much more longer term thing, and I suspect that every politician from Trump to Obama to every Bush or whoever, every single one of them is going to overlook Bitcoin, because they'll be like, well, okay, it's probably my successor's problem. I'm not going to worry about it. And in the meantime, I'm going to try to score cheap political points, saying something about this or that, and that's how politicians operate. They don't think in terms of decades. Thankfully, Bitcoin thinks in terms of decades, and a decade from now, it's going to be pretty awesome.
Well, Jimmy, the number of people that think in terms of Bitcoin with decades is running low. That's why we have all these shitcoiners and people creating these shitcoins, right?
Well, it's the remnant, man. It's the people it's the intolerant minority, and these are the people that are holding Bitcoin, that run full nodes and do all this other stuff. People like Trump or Bolton or Mnuchin or whoever, they're all thinking short-term wins, how to get reelected. That's their main bag. That's their main concern. It's not about monetary policy. It's not about the existential threat to the Fed. It's not about losing government power eventually to Bitcoin. It's about how much power can I get now? How can I get reelected? How can I do things that I want to do? That's their concern. That's the frame of reference that they come from. And that's how I read this statement. It's about scoring some cheap political win so that they have better chances at reelection rather than something else.
I was thinking, I mean, I stand by what I said before about Trump and Bitcoin. Of course, I agree with Ton and with Jimmy. There may be two very flammable Trump-Bitcoin connection. One is actually through WikiLeaks. So Trump being like or acting like a law and order guy will always be anti, let's call it illegality or stuff like that. But in particular about WikiLeaks, there was some kind of, so WikiLeaks was explicitly revealing embarrassing secret of Hillary Clinton. So during the last political campaign, Trump was kind of friendly. Also, the son of Trump was kind of friendly with the WikiLeaks people. And WikiLeaks is very close to the history of Bitcoin because it's run entirely on Bitcoin donations since they shut down every kind of payment. So there may be this flippable link, but even if there is, I mean, the most direct way for Trump to be seen as close to WikiLeaks would be to pardon Julian Assange and not to speak well about Bitcoin in general. And the other very flippable trace connection could be that I don't remember the name, but some very pro-Bitcoin guy was involved in some business brainstorm by Trump 3 years ago. I remember there was this businessman that was considered by many Bitcoiners a very pro-Bitcoin guy, and he was involved by Trump. Is like, but I think that's, I mean, the point with politics is that everything changes narratives. Political narrative changes in minutes and in days, not in years. So everything which was is probably irrelevant at this point.
Okay. All right. So thank you for your insight, Giacomo. I do want to mention that this conversation was in the context of President Trump addressing Mnuchin on Mnuchin was, I suppose, dipping his toes in trade, and Trump wanted him to focus on more treasury-related matters in the U.S. state, but it was interesting that he was saying to go after Bitcoin for fraud. I mean, Bitcoin could be used to address fraud because the money is traceable, and I believe the FBI and intelligence officials have used Bitcoin in the sense they want criminals to use Bitcoin so that they can actually trace the funds. So maybe a lack of advisors, maybe down that point, someone could let the Trump administration know. I'm going to go on to our next topic, which is a tweet from James Presswich. He says that, which is to say, Blockstream wrote a bug. The bug allows Blockstream or coordinated employees to steal hundreds of Bitcoin. The bug has persisted for 18 months. The bug was known to Blockstream but never fixed. They aren't answering basic questions about it. So, Jimmy, can you weigh in on this tweet?
Yeah, so the bug that he's talking about is that this is about the liquid sidechain, and basically it's a federation that's controlled by, it's a federated blockchain. So it's controlled by 15 participants, and 11 of those 15 have to, yeah, it looks like I'm frozen. Oh, no.
No, you're good.
No, you're
You guys are so still, I can't tell. All right, so 11 of 15 of them have to sign off in order for funds to be transferred out. Now, there was a bug apparently. I'm not sure if it's fairly characterized as a bug, but after a certain expiry, then it goes into sort of an emergency mode, where instead of 11 of 15, it's required to be signed by 2 of 3 in order to take out Bitcoins from the sidechain. So what he's saying here is that this bug allows Blockstream, not Blockstream specifically, but 2 of 3 of these entities to take the Bitcoin from these sort of like that these funds that haven't rolled over into new 11 of 15s. And there's a bunch of it. So I think he quoted something like thousands of Bitcoin are locked up in this way. It's 2 of 3 instead of 11 of 15. But that's what he's talking about. Now, I do agree that they're not really responding to this, which is a little bit concerning. They should be responding to this and saying, okay,
well, Adam Back did send a couple of tweets. If you scroll up a little bit, Christina, I think
there is
up or down.
Yeah, there is also an official statement by Blockstream.
No, if you scroll down, maybe there's Adam. There's Adam. Go scroll down a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, here.
Okay, but
There's
this is Adam
a fail
tweeting.
safe. Yeah.
But you can also find an official statement by Blockstream I think it was like 3 hours ago or something. So
okay, I haven't seen that statement, so maybe we should go look up that statement.
Yeah, go on Blockstream Twitter account, and you can find the postmortem basically. In the meantime, while you go, I can explain a little bit. So what they are saying, they are recognizing the problem. They are apologizing for a communication problem at the beginning because it's true that they didn't respond for a while. So they say, go. I think it's go up. It's not the pinned one.
It's the pinned tweet.
No, yeah.
No, the pinned tweet is from last year.
Okay,
no.
Oh yeah. Go down. Go down. It's not the 7 hours ago.
Again.
It's not the
Blockstream
advancing Bitcoin.
Whoever controls the Blockstream account, less retweeting and more useful things.
Okay, here,
right there.
Here, this one. Yeah. Oh, because it was not Blockstream, it was the liquid account. Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, what this postmortem is saying is that the bug is true, and they were aware of the bug. The bug is not opening a time window. So Jimmy already explained the normal normal way the federation works is 11 out of 13. But in case that more than 4 functionaries get taken down by some event, you need a way to get the money out. So in case nobody is responding, or a majority is not responding for a long while, then there is an emergency recovery key, which is actually a 2 or 3 kept by Blockstream in 3 different locations around the world. So the idea is that before this time is arriving, you should always move the funds in order to restart the countdown, basically. So when the funds are closing to expiration, in this sense, they should just, the functionary hardware and firmware and software should just activate to move them in order to renovate and to restart the countdown. The bug, basically what it did was to moving the funds a few minutes after the expiration instead of before. So the delta of time in which Blockstream could get hold on the 3 keys or 2 of the 2 keys and steal the money was not a delta of 18 months, was just a delta of, if I read it correctly, about 40 minutes. But the problem is that this delta of about 40 minutes was repeatedly happening for new and new expiration dates every time. So at each point, there was a possible 40-minute delay between the end of the expiration and the new and the movement that was restarting the expiration. So it was a small attack surface, but a serious one. What this post is saying is that they basically were aware of the bug around December. They alerted the federates that were supposed to be directly involved, and then because the fixing needed to physically come to touch the HSM, the secure module, so you cannot fix this from remote, because these modules, the secure hardware they're using is not just accepting stuff from Blockstream in remote. You have to go there to open it in a certain way and to upgrade the software. So allegedly the COVID, the lockdown situation prevented them from fixing, and they thought it was not a big deal because back then the amount of Bitcoins was not huge in December. And now it is huge, and so now it was exposed to the public without being fixed yet. So it's a bit of a mixed response, because at the end, the Adam recognizes that there was like a lacking communication, mostly for two reasons. The first reason, when this bug was exposed, they didn't react very quick with a consistent and clear explanation. There was some hand waving and some confusion, and that's not very good. And the second point, which I think it's also implicit in this final apologize about the communication, is that yes, I mean Liquid has two sets of stakeholders. One set is the fiduciaries. They are the block signers and they are the unpeggers, and they were alerted, so that's fine. But the point is that there is another set of stakeholders, which is people using Liquid. So even if just this 15 company can actually sign blocks and sign peg, everybody can use Liquid to move stuff around. So they did disclose the bug back in December to the Federation, but they didn't disclose it publicly to just everybody using Liquid, which is probably what they should have done if it was not possible to fix it soon. It's true that in general, you have a problem of responsible disclosure. If there is a bug, you don't tell about the bug until you fix it. But this is not the case, because the bug was only exploitable by Blockstream itself. So declaring the bug publicly would not have created any attack surface for anybody else that internally. So I think it's true that the communication was, as Adam says at the end of the tweet. That said, the press which is a little bit dramatizing everything, but it's an interesting bug, and it shows that the Liquid architecture is kind of very hard to patch, because the same reason that you don't want the fiduciaries to play with. So Blockstream is not just, Liquid is not just a federation, it's a strong federation. The idea of strong federation is that the rules of the federation are not only in the hands of different entities, but they are inside these hardwares that are very difficult to touch and to tamper with. So every time you want to update something, including security patches, you have some logistical challenges. So there are pros and cons about that, I guess.
Okay. I do want to just go over to a bit of to Jimmy, because he's got to leave us.
We have to say goodbye to you, right, Jimmy?
Yeah, I have like 3 minutes. I can just do the. Let's skip my books and stuff. Let's just go straight to the mempool.
Okay, up to you. Mempool, or you want to comment on what Giacomo said? But I want to throw a few comments in after. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Okay, all right. So the mempool, if you scroll down, Christine, I'll tell you a little bit more. You can see that it cleared over the weekend up again. It spiked yesterday, but then it cleared again overnight, and you can see that it's below the dotted line, which means that every transaction clears at that point. It's gone up again, probably a little bit higher than you would expect, but it'll probably clear not tonight, but over the next few days. And I expect that this weekend it'll clear again. If you want to get in right now, you're going to probably have to pay on the order of 20 to 30 satoshis per byte. But if you're willing to wait, you know, 5 Satoshis per byte is probably plenty to clear at some point in the next couple of days. If you do 1 Satoshi per byte, then you can clear eventually. Anyway, that's it for now. Sorry I have to go, guys. I'm sure Tone and Giacomo will finish out the show well. This song is done.
Thanks, Jimmy. And remember, guys, Jimmy has his book out, Programming Bitcoin, Learn How to Program Bitcoin from Scratch. I know a lot of you are sitting around home under shutdown orders, or just social distancing or quarantining in general. So this is no better time than ever to find out how to program Bitcoin, do a little reading. Back to this this tweet. Tone, do you want to weigh in on your thoughts on this bug?
Sure. So like Giacomo said at the end, who was that developer that called out Blockstream, I guess? Look, developers, you know, they're not very famous people. There's really only a few, even in the crypto space, where developers like the most important thing. A few of them are well known. So like the only way like a developer could be known is if they start ranting and screaming about something that probably didn't really deserve it. Gavin Andreessen is famous of this because that's how we got the damn block debate in the first place. And there's been other exploits. So the problem here is, so anyone that hates Blockstream immediately clings to this view that this was done maliciously on purpose so that Blockstream could steal all the Bitcoin. And this is a bad assumption because Blockstream has not demonstrated anything in its past or current situation that would make an assumption that this was done on purpose to steal the coins. Now, at the same time, what I can make an argument for is that it makes sense for there to be some kind of a fail-safe so that these coins don't end up totally lost in the Liquid network without having any access. And then Liquid becomes a black hole for your Bitcoin when enough of the, I guess the federators, what do you call them, Giacomo? Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
Federates sometime, or
federates, right? There you go. When a bunch of federates fall asleep, you don't really want your Bitcoin to be lost, right? I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, I agree. It's still not perfect the way it went because again, the communication to the users of the Little network should have probably been more precise. Right. But I agree that to make it look like it was an attempt to steal, it's I mean, it's very, very. Also, they had basically a lot of months to do that if they wanted. There is some ambiguity. Like the point is that Blockstream is at the same time a technology provider, like say Cisco, and also one of the economic actor of the network. This is a little bit confusionary, and this is going to change a little bit with the new dynamic federation that makes actually for the federates easy to fire the Blockstream counterparty if they want. So there should be some change with that. But there is some confusion, but I agree that the super conspiracy take is kind of silly.
Right. And that's what people need to understand. You need to go back to the original documentation and look at the motivation for doing it that way. Granted, it didn't work out the way they expected it, with way more coins with their ability to take possession of than they wanted. And at the same time, the communication was probably not great. But you gotta go back to the original motivations of this. I mean, just because 99% of people in this space begin their project with the motivation to steal something, there are companies in the space that have earned a bit of a benefit of the doubt in that regard, especially when it's documented as to why something is being done a certain way. They have not stolen any of the Bitcoin, obviously. And hopefully they resolve this in a different way soon so that this is no longer an issue.
Okay. Thank you, Tone. That wraps up our headlines that we're going to be focusing on for today. We can move on to Tone's price crypto analysis. I'm going to unshare my screen here. Since I stop sharing. There we go.
All right.
So,
everyone,
yeah.
I did a price show this morning, so this is going to be really quick, but this whole morning show was mostly about the S&P 500. The reason it was about the S&P 500 is because I just see unreasonably ridiculous correlation between Bitcoin and the S&P 500. Bitcoin had a good day today. It was up. S&P 500 was up. Bitcoin was up yesterday. S&P 500 was up yesterday. If tomorrow the S&P 500 crashes, I would expect Bitcoin to do the same. On a longer term look, will remain consolidated below this resistance line, which is at around 10,000. We have now, this is like the 9th or the 10th week of this consolidation / pullback from that area. I've been saying for this entire year that I anticipate Bitcoin to spend the majority of this year between 6,000 and 10,000. It's possible for us to break 10,000 in the second half of the year, which I think starts tomorrow, but more like the last quarter of the year. I still think Bitcoin has a little bit of a pullback to go, mostly because I think the stock market has more of a pullback to go. We had a huge update today in the stock market. We are hitting a bit of resistance here in the stock market. It may pull back tomorrow. I become a bull in the stock market if we can break the highs of a few weeks ago, which means at that point, I would anticipate Bitcoin to break 10,000 July or August. However, I still think that everything is going to pull back. I didn't talk much about the daily chart of the price this morning. We remain under this, the underside of this descending triangle, which I'm not a huge fan of. So we got to give the daily chart of Bitcoin a little bit more time. I just don't see a big breakout in Bitcoin unless we can get over 97.50. If we can get over 97.50, at that point, there's a high probability of a breakout. As long as we're sitting here in the low 9,000s, the more likely path for Bitcoin over the rest of the summer is more downside. Here's the 4-hour chart. On a 4-hour chart, I have this critical support line. We have gone under it a few days ago. We went over it yesterday, then back under, and now we're hovering above it today. If tomorrow we are back below this line, I would anticipate for price to accelerate to the downside once again. But to me, everything is dependent on how stocks do. Gold is breaking out. Gold has broken its highs from this whole COVID drama. And I have been bullish gold. The last position I still hold because I got out of my short in the stock market yesterday because I didn't like the price action. And therefore, the only trade I have right now is long gold. And I'm still bullish on gold. That's pretty much it, guys. And check out the site. I have, if you want to support this podcast, please check out the affiliate page. I have I got to update my Amazon list, which is below. It doesn't show up on this computer for some reason, but it shows up on everybody else's. And I don't teach workshops often these days, but I will be teaching 2 webinars in July. So pretty much this month. All right, that's it for me. We had about 300 to 400 live viewers today. So thank you guys for watching.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you, Tom.
Bye, everyone.
I'll mention that I saw in the questions there, where's Leah? Leah's in Singapore. It's 5 a.m. there, so she couldn't join us today. But do check out her latest Medium article on Ethereum. Don't buy the Grayscale Ethereum Trust. She has written it for exponential investments, so check it out.
Yep. Yes, check out Leah's article. She's been writing about Ethereum quite often. If you're a fan of Ethereum, may not really want to look at it. All right, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you, Giacomo, for joining us. Next show, maybe later in the week, Thursday, Friday, we will see. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for price analysis. It will probably happen later in the day, maybe noonish Eastern, maybe even a little later than that. It's not going to be early in the morning. All right. Talk to you
Excellent.
all soon. Bye, guys.